Welcome back, Heat Seekers. Hopefully week 13 brought you fantasy glory and our waiver wires helped. We've got some guys for week 14 we think can help you out. Let's see what we can do. At linebacker, Mr. Kraig, what are we talking about?
Starting off with Brown's sort of breakout hero of the game last week, Tony Fields II. So he hadn't had more than a 40% snap share in the 5 games he played before last week. Last week he ended with 3 solos and assist, interception, touchdown, forced fumble, fumble recovery. And of course, we're not going to see that stuff every week, but it kind of sounds like they're saying he can be the next guy up in that role that Sione Takitaki had been in, that Anthony Walker had been in, that Phillips had been in, that just keep losing people to injury. It doesn't really sound like Deion Jones, who they traded for, is going to be the guy. Something worth paying attention to. But this coming week, they face the Bengals in a must-win game, and the Bengals are first in points allowed to linebackers this year and 4th in tackles allowed per game to opposing linebackers. So it's a great spot for whichever one it ends up being, and it kind of sounds like Fields for that one. Next guy up is Chad Muma. He's a guy that we talked about a lot in our rookie coverage. If you go back and check that out on our YouTube for the IDP show that we do in the offseason, he has started to pick up playing time here with Devin Lloyd sort of hitting that rookie wall. Past 3 weeks, 39%, 100%, 76%. And over those 3 weeks, 15 solos, 11 assists, 2 tackles for a loss, 1.5 sacks. Facing the Titans in a big divisional game here. So kind of looks like Moon is going to be the guy they're given the second linebacker reins to for the most part, next to Foya Luakon. Next, we got 3 guys here. They're not amazing options, but we know 6 bye weeks this week. And the playoffs either starting or around the corner, you got to have someone getting you points here. Micah McFadden showed up and, he out-tackled Jalen Smith, who had a slightly more snap share of 67% for Micah, 74% for Jalen, so not a big difference. 9 combined tackles for McFadden to 5 combined tackles for Jalen. His snap share isn't great this year in general, but it was the second week in a row. He was above 56% facing the Eagles. It's a big, must-win game. Eagles are going to be trying to run the ball a lot. I'm sure whether they do that to get up and, teams have had success running against the Giants, or if they just blow them out, of course, they're going to be running. And next one, it's even messier. It's Dylan Cole or Joe Schobert. David Long went out with a hamstring injury against the Eagles last week. Cole had a 77% snap share once Long went out. He had 7 solos, 3 assists, a tackle for a loss. Schobert had a 51% snap share. It was the highest of the season, 4 solos, 2 assists. One of these guys is going to end up starting if David Long is out. It kind of feels like Cole, but be paying attention to because we really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like if you had to pick an order of importance, this kind of feels like how I'd go after him. Fields and Muma are definitely, and the other ones are in case of emergency or bye weeks are hurting you, things like that. This is kind of the order I would put him in. And Muma, deserves it. Muma's looked really good. And this was, like you said, a guy we talked about in the offseason that we were huge fans of, that thought the landing spot was kind of strange because they literally drafted a guy in the first round and then came back and grabbed him. But it's showing well. Fields will be fun just because Taki going on IR. I think Fields could give you rest of season value if you needed a linebacker that you could trust the rest of the season. I'd be okay with it. All right, moving on to defensive backs. We got a little bit different here. So what's going on?
Yeah, we got all sorts of variety. Again, when you run into bye week issues this late in the season and you need some sort of points, sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper here. So we got a couple guys that on different sites are safeties and cornerbacks. So, know your league, know your scoring and all that. First one, we're looking at Cameron Bynum. So he played almost 80% of his snaps this year at free safety, but there are sites where he's listed as a cornerback, so if you can play him there, that's great. He has 100% snap share on the year. Lions are an interesting case. So they are 21st in fantasy points allowed to opposing defensive backs, they are 12th in fantasy points allowed, but they are 21st in tackles allowed. So they give up more big plays than they give up tackles. Bynum has at least 5 combined tackles in 8 out of 12 games this year, including when they faced Minnesota earlier. When they faced the Lions earlier this year, he's on Minnesota. It'd be hard to face himself when they played week 3. So I think he's going to be able to get you some guaranteed tackles. And if you can slide him into a cornerback slot in your site, it's even better. Same sort of thing here with Will Harris. So he's played 64% of his snaps at slot corner. He is 8th in solo tackles amongst defensive backs over the past 4 weeks when his total snap share jumps up to about 88%. And he's been productive there, 24 solos, 6 assists, a couple other pass deflections. If you're able to play him as a cornerback, again, even better. But Vikings are 6th in points allowed to opposing cornerbacks. So he's in a really nice spot to get you some value. You want to talk about a true safety, Xavier Woods, not the guy from the WWE, but the Panthers safety is coming off a bye week here. He gets you tackles and not a whole lot else. He's got 42 solos, 25 assists, and 4 pass deflections on the year. That's it. But he's getting you then, it's almost 6 combined tackles a game. That's a really nice floor if you need to fill in. And then for our true cornerback, we got Jonathan Jones, the New England Patriots. Patriots are a mess in how they've used their cornerbacks this year. It's kind of the Patriots way, just like the running backs historically, but he's at a 71% snap share on the year, goes up to about 87% the past 3 weeks, of which he has 13 solos, 4 assists, 4 deflections, and an interception. They're facing the Cardinals, who give up the 3rd most points to opposing cornerbacks, so he's in a great spot to get you some points.
Yeah, those high-powered offenses, the ones that tend to pass a bunch, those are the ones that you want to look at the cornerbacks for. I mean, Detroit is a perfect one this week because, 4 out of the last 5 games they've won. They've been passing the ball a bunch. They're a high-powered offense, but they can run the ball. I mean, I love all these picks. I think Xavier Woods is probably my favorite of the guys if you're targeting somebody off the waiver wire, because I feel good about him the rest of the season when you look at their playoff schedule. If you need a guy for the playoffs, he could help you there too. But definitely. I mean, and it's funny, not Jonathan Jones related, but Tariq Woolen from Seattle has been a corner I've started so many weeks this year. I'm like, maybe I need to change my opinion on the cornerback situation. I always say rotate him every week, but there's a couple of guys this year where you're like, I could slot him in and start him every week. Jonathan Jones is definitely not one of them. This is a you play the matchups kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find one, like, I got Marlon Humphrey in a league off of waivers, and I've been playing him for 4 or 5 years or something like that. So, I mean, if you can find one and slot him in, it's great. It's just sometimes easier than trusting a guy when there aren't a whole lot you can trust for fantasy production.
Yeah. Definitely not a consistent thing. It's seeing some different trends here recently that I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to rethink my stance, but still not there yet. All right, defensive linemen, where are we at here? What are we doing?
We got a couple stories from the past, if you will, and then we got a couple fun names to go through. Defensive lineman, we have Carlos Dunlap at the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a little under 50% snap share on the year, despite playing in every Chiefs game. But he's got some big plays: 5 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks, 4 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. He's got at least 3 combined tackles in 4 to 5 games since their Week 8 bye, and they're playing the Broncos, who are just horrendous in general, but also to defensive ends, giving up the 4th most points to them this year in a really must-win game bounce back for the Chiefs after losing to the Bengals. So he's in a great spot to get you some production like he did years ago, possibly on your fantasy teams.
Absolutely.
Similar one, Chandler Jones. So the Raiders are miraculously somehow still in playoff contention on a 3-win streak, and they are coming off a great game for their edge players. But Chandler showed up for the first time this year: 5 solos and assists, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, and a pass deflection. Normally, we don't want to chase points, but the matchup is great as they're playing the Rams again. They have an atrocious line who gives up tons of points to opposing defensive ends, slashing that outside linebacker position, starting their 3rd quarterback for the year. So Chandler's in a great spot to continue and help the Raiders make that push. So now we got a couple interesting guys, and by that I mean I'm going to try to get their names right. First one is Oboyna, defensive edge linebacker for the Texans. His season's picked up the past few weeks here too. Over the past 3, he's at a 52.47% snap share, which is up from 39% overall on the year. Got 5 solos, 6 assists, 2 tackles for a loss, and a sack during that time frame. Texans are going to be on the field like they normally are. They're playing the Cowboys. Cowboys are going to be continuing to run the ball when they're able to, and they get up. So it's going to be a great spot for him to be on the field and get you some points. And another fun name here on the Dallas Cowboys, Osa Odigizua, defensive tackle. Texans are 5th in points allowed to opposing defensive tackles. He's got the highest snap share of the Dallas Cowboys defensive tackles on the year, and he'll get you some tackles. He's got 18 solos, 11 assists, 5 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. I think he's going to be getting you a few tackles. He's going to be in that rotation, but he'll have plenty of opportunities because the Texans love to run the ball. They give up those points, and the Cowboys have a really nice defensive line around him that allows him to get those tackles. So he's my defensive tackle pick for the week.
Yeah, the Texans need to run the ball to slow other teams down. That's basically what it comes down to, waste time. So thank you guys, as always, for helping us out and jumping on here. Like, subscribe, hit the notification icon, share it with a friend. Don't forget, have a great week. Good luck. We'll see you next week.